Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome everybody to the second annual Father's Day Peace Walk. My name is Tim Cruz, and I am the Plymouth County District Attorney. And we can all see we're doing things a little differently this year. As with most things in our life right now, virtually everything we're doing is virtual. So unfortunately, the actual walk had to be postponed due to COVID-19. But we have a great panel with us today to talk about some of the ways for all of us to get involved in our communities to promote peace. I want to thank all of our panelists today that are here. We're fortunate I'll start off with, we're very fortunate to have Ms. Sharon Baker here. Sharon is really the driving force behind all this. She is the director of Life Emissaries of New England, which is a support group for families in the city of Brockton and beyond who have lost a loved one to violence. Life Emissaries, under Sharon's guidance, hosted the first annual Father's Day Peace Walk last year. More than 100 people participated and walked in support of peace. We're really looking forward to this year's walk. And I know once we're able to next year, Sharon will have us all ready. We'll all be ready to go forward and actually do a real walk versus a virtual walk. So thank you, Sharon, for everything that you've done and that you'll continue to do. We're also joined today by Richard Claytor. Richard is the Director of Programs at the Family Nurturing Center, where their mission is to work to build nurturing communities where children and families are supported and healthy human development is promoted by all. The Family Nurturing Center provides family support and education programs that build up parent skills as nurturers and teachers, develops children's school readiness, and connects families to resources and each other. One of those programs is the Nurturing Fathers program, which is overseen by Richard and his team. Richard, thank you for being with us today. Also with us today is Jamal Gooding. Jamal is the founder of PACC, People Affecting Community Change. PACC started at the New Life Temple of Holiness Church in 2017 with the mission to help formerly incarcerated individuals gain employment and also using volunteer opportunities to provide for the homeless and work with local youth. Jamal has grown PACC over the years, and he is truly a community champion. In addition to helping hundreds of individuals find employment at sporting and concert venues, as well as working with trade organizations, Jamal always finds time to give back. I think today he's working on his fresh produce initiative as we speak. So Jamal, thank you for what you're doing today and what you do every day, and also thank you for being with us today. We're also grateful to have Pastor Emmanuel Daphnis with us today. Pastor Daphnis is currently pastor of the Restoration Community Church, located here in Brockton, and also serves on the Brockton Gun Violence Prevention Coalition Coordinator, an initiative aimed at the reduction of gun violence in the city. Pastor Daphnis brings with him his theological background, his experience in violence reduction, and his experience as a father of three. So thank you, Pastor, for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us today. In 2018, 30 individuals were shot here in the city of Brockton, 7 of whom died as a result. In 2019, that number was down to 23 individuals shot with 4 fatalities. Thus far in 2020, 9 individuals have been shot with 1 fatality. Over the last 10 years, there has been a 36% decrease in all firearm-related crimes. Specifically, we have seen a decrease of 71% in armed robberies with guns, a 36% decrease in aggravated assaults with guns, and between 2018 and 2019, a 23% decrease in the numbers of people shot. So we are certainly seeing a downward trend in firearms crimes, and that's good, but we still have work to do. We have to remember that the tentacles of violence are long, they extend into our neighborhoods, they leave families dealing with extensive trauma and all the other variety of issues that we deal with here in our county and in the city of Brockton, lead for us to work together to make a difference. I also just want to take a moment today to thank our Safe Street partners. As many of you know, our office back in 2015 began the Safe Streets Initiative, which nowadays continues to reduce gun violence and making that a priority. In 2017, the DA's office here in Plymouth County was selected as one of 14 sites to receive the Project Safe Neighborhood grant from the Department of Justice. It was a grant that we had about 10 years or so ago, and then it went away, and now it's back. The Safe Streets Coalition is a collaboration between law enforcement and community-based organizations to address gun violence through the pillars of prevention, enforcement, and reentry services. Both Sharon and Jamal sit on our Safe Streets Executive Board. It's a great partnership between the community and law enforcement, and I'm very grateful for all of our partners involved. Gun violence will not be tolerated in our county. We are dedicated to holding the right individuals accountable. And we have done so. And I think that's a big reason why we are seeing downward trends. The other reason, however, is very multifaceted. Because in addition to enforcement, we stress the importance of prevention and reentry services. Violence prevention is essential. Mentoring, education, positive youth development activities like sports, music, dance are all vital to our community. And on the back end, we need to make sure that we hold people accountable. We also need to be there for them with a healthy reintegration system back into our community. People like Jamal are so important in helping individuals get back to work. And programs like Nurturing Fathers, and like Richard and his team are involved in, all contribute to the success of creating safe and healthy neighborhoods and families. So with us today, and I'm going to ask to say a few words, if you would, is Brockton's newest mayor. And I think it's fair to say that Mayor Sullivan has certainly walked into a challenging situation. First, from the current situation we're at right now, from COVID-19, from just being the new mayor in a very large urban community. And I think he's handled it all really well so far, and I anticipate that he'll continue to do that. And I'm glad that he's able to join us in a variety of fashions, and I'm glad that he's been able to join us today. So I'd ask the mayor if he could just say a couple of words regarding the Peace Walk today.
Good morning, Mr. DA. First of all, I want to thank everybody for the invitation to be here. As DA Cruz just said, I'm the newest mayor, but I'm a Brockton guy, and we need to make sure that Brockton is safe and inclusive and vibrant. And I will tell you that every panelist here, and Sharon Baker has become a dear friend. She sends me scriptures every day, and it means a lot to me. And Pastor Manny's become a friend, and I know Jamal and Bill and Richard, and what they do to better our community is unbelievable. I will tell you that one endeavor I did when I became mayor is I joined the mayors against illegal guns. It was set by Mayor Bloomberg in New York and Mayor Menino in Boston, and it hadn't been accepted by any mayor in the city of Brockton. I accepted it proudly. Violence prevention in our community is key. But also, I'm a dad. I'm a dad of 3 young kids, and it's a gift. It's an honor and a privilege to be a dad. And what I've learned from my own father, who is still alive, just turned 80, former Brockton High School teacher and a Brocktonian his whole life. This is my humble suggestions. You need to be engaged. You need to be a teacher. You need to be a good listener. You need to provide advice and support. But you also have to teach values. You have to teach values. You have to teach hard work and respect for others, especially respect for women. You have to be polite at all times, courteous. You have to be peaceful, nonviolent. Nonviolent is the way to go. I personally tell my children to pray daily. You have to pray. And you have to really study hard and work hard in education. Brockton has one of the best education systems, not just in the Commonwealth, but in the nation. At the end of the day, it's about being a mentor, being someone that your children can look up to. I coach sports, basketball, soccer, and baseball. I think it's important. It's important to my own children, but also the boys and girls that are on my teams. So again, you got to check in every single day. When the DA and I grew up, we didn't have social media. So I encourage everybody, parents, not just dads, to look at what your children are looking at and doing on social media and make sure that they're working diligently every day to be good people. It's the next generation in Brockton that's going to really turn Brockton the corner. So if you don't happen to be a dad, you're an uncle, you're a godfather, you're a nephew, you can do the same thing. So number one thing is to listen and learn, be a nurturing dad, but also be a Brocktonian. Be proud of the City of Champions. Change is coming. Long needed systemic change is coming. And we're going to be a catalyst for not just the Commonwealth, but the nation. And I want to thank DA Tim Cruz for what he does for our community on a daily basis, all the elected officials, all the pastors, but it's the people. It's the people that are going to make a difference. So again, I'm just honored to be here. I'm really privileged to be here. I'm honored to be the mayor of the city of Brockton, but after I'm not the mayor of Brockton, I'm still going to be a Brocktonian. And that's the most important thing is let's come together as a community, teach the values to the next generation, and really just make a difference in the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's great to hear those words. And obviously, I think a lot of change will come from the top. And I know it's been great for you to be here and to lead us in the direction that we're going to right now, which I believe will result in a lot of positivity, more positivity that's already occurring here in the city. I'd like to kick it over to Sharon, if I could, and just ask her if she could just remark on how she came up with the idea to do the Father's Day Peace Walk and what inspired you to get involved in peace advocacy. Sharon?
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Timothy Cruz, Mayor, and everyone else that's sitting on this panel. As you all know, I'm Sharon Baker. I reside in the city of Brockton, been here over 25 years, so I guess I'm a Brocktonian too now. The way I was inspired to start this Father's Day Peace Walk is to bring peace and to bring brothers. I'm talking about all race, nations, and creeds. However, mostly brothers that look like me. And the reason being is the black on black killing has to stop. As we all know, my son was murdered, my nephew was murdered, and it's black on black crime. And that is very important. So I said, let me do something to bring, the brothers together. And that's what inspired me to start the Father's Day Peace Walk. As Mr. Cruz said, when we did the first one last year, we had over 100 participants. And I'm very sorry that COVID-19 had to interrupt us, because Sunday we would have been out there and we would have been walking in peace and unity and dignity. We also have to be reminded that we have to be accountable. And being accountable is what the DA's office is doing, holding people accountable for their actions. And that makes a difference. And that's how the Father's Day Peace Walk got started.
Well, thank you so much for organizing that, and all the strength that you have, but all the different community activities that you're involved in. It makes a difference, and I'm appreciative of it, and all the other people here in the city are appreciative of it. Next, I'm going to move over to Richard, if I could. And Richard, families are so important when we talk about healthy development, support systems, and building resilience. Specifically, given that today's event is a Father's Day Peace Walk, how can fathers become involved in violence prevention and peace advocacy?
Thank you. And I just want to personally thank Sharon for her leadership. I think there is it's pretty easy to sort of sit by and watch things happen. But when you're called to action, sometimes you just have to step up and make things happen. So I commend you, Sharon, and I just want to tell you that you have the support of all of us, even in the midst of this. I think you'll have a lot of energy around the walk, virtual or not virtual, and I look forward to getting together next year with you and bringing a whole crew out to support you. I will say, just in response to the question, and thank you, DA Cruz, and certainly thank you, Mayor, and the other panelists. One of the things that we sort of reinforce and constantly deliver a message to the fathers that we're working with in the nurturing programs is how essential fathers are to the healthy growth and development of children. That our focus really is on the children. A lot of our programs are really connected to preventing and ending child abuse, and I think that is one of the sort of major efforts that we aspire to in working with fathers. But there's some basic things that we begin with, and I think the program certainly has had some impact. The Nurturing Fathers program has really been a statewide initiative, and part of the work is training facilitators across the state to use our 13-week curriculum in their work with fathers. And that curriculum really reinforces a couple of very important parts that I think go along with this discussion today. That, first of all, violence in any sort, to any degree, of any frequency, and for any reason, has no positive impact on developing a healthy, caring, empathic family. And I think that's where we start with the men that we work with, is really having them take a look at themselves and determine how their attitudes and behaviors are impacting their families and impacting their children. We know that dads bring a unique perspective to the families. We know that when mothers and fathers work together, they can support their children better by supporting each other, whether they're married, unmarried, whether they're living together, not living together, whether they're the biological father or the father, or the man taking on the role of the father. And so my personal experiences with Brockton, and Sharon, you said that. My oldest son is now, oh my God, I'll lose it, 26 years old. And I was, as Mayor Sullivan mentioned, I was the soccer coach for the Brockton Youth Soccer Association for so many years that my kids both went into BYSA at 6 years old. I have way too many years of experience in Main Street at both the YMCA youth program, the little gym I call it, and the big gym, because my youngest son started out playing basketball on Main Street in those gyms in second grade, and it was sort of amazing to have to go in and crank down the hoops and really be in a position to make it so that those little kids weren't trying to shoot on the 10-foot basket, because it was almost impossible. But I think there's a place for engaging fathers and really thinking about how do we connect them to their children. One of the things that we've seen over the years is that when fathers are and have a real positive connection to their children, that it has a positive impact on their behavior. It sort of changes the way that they view parenting, and it changes the way that they involve and engage themselves with their children. There's a feeling that that dads are not involved and men of color are not involved, and I think all of that is not true. We've seen on many occasions where dads have shown up, are coaching soccer, are coaching basketball, and are becoming role models, not just for their children, but for the children in the community that don't have a positive male role model. So some of what I would say is that there's a way to get fathers engaged. Sometimes the young dads in particular don't have a good role model, so you really got to be able to impact them in a way that provides them with a model and a positive vision of what they can do as fathers. But it goes back to what's the social norms that we're supporting? What is the commitment that we make to help fathers and particularly young men change their life? I think a lot of the dads that we work with, both in the jail and in the community, are really looking for options. And how do we create those options? I think the Peace Walk is one option. I'm affiliated with the Vern Gordon and the Love Life Now Foundation around ending violence, family violence, and gender violence. And we are staying strong, frankly, with the Nurturing Fathers programs in both of those initiatives. We sponsor a Fathers and Fun Day event in the city of Boston and work with the folks in New Bedford in sponsoring their events so we can bring fathers and families out into the park during the summer with a bunch of activities and really show the example of what positive manhood and what positive fatherhood looks like in the community. So my vision and my idea, and sort of the only thing I can say on this really quickly, is that there's a way for us to, in this time of virtual, we're rethinking a peace walk. Some of what this has given us an opportunity to do is rethink how we connect with fathers. We've got virtual fathers programs and virtual family programs. We're doing virtual story time. I've got some dads that are reading books into YouTube, and we're sending them out to all the dads so they can have bedtime stories by a dad to their children. But I think it's really sort of thinking about changing the image and changing the way that we view fatherhood, and particularly how we view men and young men in the building of communities. What's their role? How do we emphasize their role? How do we emphasize the importance of their interactions with their children? And how do we support that in a way that has sustainability, not just as a little piece here and a little piece there? I think there is the need for collaboration and partnership across all fields. It's the faith, it's the jobs, it's the parenting education, and it certainly has civic responsibility attached to it. And we try to reinforce and support all of those efforts with the dads that we work with. So thank you again, and I'm here and available for any of you. We do have a big project that we will be starting in Brockton, and I'll make sure that we get it out to you, because we're working with the Community Connection site in the Family Resource Center down on Main Street, and we'll be doing some trainings and recruiting fathers into a fathers program in Brockton. Thanks again.
That'd be great. Thanks so much, Richard, for everything that you do. Pastor Daphnis, if I'm going off what Richard had to say, in your opinion, why are fathers so important today, particularly in the context of violence prevention?
Well, good morning, everyone. And again, I just want to thank you for even inviting me and having me on the panel. I consider it truly an honor, and I want to commend you, Sharon, for the starting and the initiative taken to pull together this walk, and ultimately to enable us to go forward together in raising the bar in terms of prevention for families. But continuing in the same vein that Richard began, I believe that fathers are pillars in the livelihood of children. Pillars, just as mothers are pillars, fathers are pillars. And when that father and or father figure isn't present, it causes there to be a lack in the life of a child and the development. From a psychological perspective, more one-on-one time from fathers is devoted from early on, according to our research, to simply playing with children, particularly boys. Fathers are the ones more likely to take their kid and throw them up in the air and catch them and say, "we," where mothers are more likely to coddle their child and make sure their child is safe. But again, from that early infancy, what we see is developmentally, children attached to their fathers and have this sense of safety, security, adventure, if you will. And in a lot of ways, particularly for boys, they develop an understanding of what purpose is, what I'm supposed to be. And particularly if the father has a good relationship with the child's mother, then what the child looks to emulate, particularly for boys, is I want to be like my father to ensure that I have my mother's love as my father has. And so what we have developmentally is this need. God designed it as such. And the reality is when we have the family unit intact in this way, what we have are pillars in place for children to develop in a way that helps them to emulate the good role modeling that they see within their family context.
That's right. And we appreciate you being here and everything that you do here in the city and all of the surrounding communities. It does make a big difference, and I want to thank you for that. And now I'm going to ask Jamal. Jamal, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I know that you work obviously with a lot of men, a lot of fathers, and as they start to reintegrate back into the community, how important is it for them to have strong family bonds and relationships with their children? And how does a reduction in violence help families, communities build those better bonds, in your opinion?
Well, good morning, everybody. And once again, thank you to Ms. Sharon Baker, Mayor Mayor Sullivan, Timothy Cruz, Pat Nevins, and all who are on this panel. So we had started out initially to help young adults in the city of Brockton who were displaced in some manner and not connected to some of the resources, some of the experiences, and some of the exposures that they need in order to develop as young men. And then we kind of end up finding out that part of their disconnect had a lot to do with a missing model in their home. And then we transitioned, of course, to include the whole city of Brockton. And so that anyone that was in transition. But to your question more directly, is that we've come to find out and believe that males in particular normally are moved by something. And we've broken it down to like three things: that they're chasing validation, attention, and affection, and they're willing to get that by any means necessary. And because the most common interactions that they have may come from those who are in gangs or involved in illicit activities, they're drawn to that. But we know that is not the sum total of who they are. And finding out where each individual is in itself a challenge. But through community work, volunteer work, and through just general labor hard work, we've come to find that these individuals are willing and humble humble enough, I guess, if you will, to listen and to compare themselves against what they consider a man is. So it's easy to tell a man to be a man when you're looking at him, but oftentimes it doesn't come with the very instructions that maybe some things we're used to do. So telling a man to be a man is very, very challenging when they don't know what a man looks like, or there's so many different perceptions that they've been given. And a lot of what we found out in terms of males that we are dealing with is that family connections may be there, but from generation to generation, the morals and the values that are needed in order to bring about sustainability, effective change are missing. So a lot of times we find that we're dealing with underdeveloped men and overgrown boys. And just getting individuals back to the basics of understanding who they are, understanding what their priorities are, and then connecting them to the opportunity to utilize those skills, we found it to be working. The Father's Day Peace Walk is absolutely necessary because we see men willing.
Jamal, you hit the mute button by accident.
Those who may be lacking. We have to.
Here you go.
And if we don't take that 20th century approach, then we're babying and we're just pacifying and we're not helping men and males to develop. Family is absolutely important because it's from family that we normally learn, what love is and respect is. We normally learn what our morals and our values are, and then we develop. So in dealing with the individuals that we've been dealing with, particularly those who are in transition, not just from prison, but from any phase of life, what does that balance look like? Well, everyone is different, but we know mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally that those are areas that have to be developed. And hopefully through the mayor's office and some of the community members on this panel and some of those programs that are in Brockton, we can give more exposure to. But hands-on is the only thing that seems to be changing. Words are not working in these challenging times, but hands-on. And we just know that right now men are lacking on the forefront and examples are lacking. So I just encourage everyone to step up, and not in word, not in deed. We need mentors, but more than mentors, we actually need life coaches, because you can help an individual get from phase 1 to phase 2, and they generally may become comfortable. But if you don't help them get a compass of where to go or how to develop their moral compass, we can't expect them to actually. I'd like to thank everybody on the panel.
Thank you, Jamal. Can you hear me?
Thank you, Mr. Cruz.
Thanks so much, for your words. I want to thank everybody for all their words today. And before we wrap up, I just had one more question I wanted to ask Sharon, if I could. Sharon, what do you suggest? The Peace Walk's happening virtual this year, but what can, as Jamal was saying, what can people do right now to advocate for peace?
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Cruz. So as far as peace, with all that's going on right now, globally, it's a lot. And for me, as far as us, peace, continue to love one another, embrace one another, invite, your surroundings, tell them, I invite you to peace. And it's the peace that surpasses all understanding. And as we, as a whole, a community, continue to do that and smile, just, hello, how are you? That goes a long ways. If you see something, the model is say something. That's not right. I unfortunately have two boys, and I was a mom and a dad to my boys. I often wonder if my son was alive, would he have had children? Things like that. So, and on the other hand, I have a son incarcerated. And so the community, fathers, workers, Pastor Daphnis, Brother Jamal, there's a lot of work. And I say to anybody, whatever I can do, I'm aboard. The mayor, you've done an excellent job. Patrick Nevins, he's not going to show his face, but anytime I call Mr. Cruz, they're always there. And so that goes a long ways for me. That speaks volume. And the one thing that I say, let's be and hold each other accountable. And if we do that, we're going to go somewhere. Brockton is a beautiful city. We're growing and going. The homeless, I do a lot with the homeless. They matter too. And so if God can do it for me, he can do it for everyone else. So let's continue to love on one another. And I thank you all for last minute. And Peace Walk, Mr. Nevins will send us a link, share the link, share the love. And I'm going to go out and just Father's Day, probably just go down to City Hall, hold some signs and pretend I'm walking, because that's how important it is for me. And it bothers me, the brothers killing the brothers. That's the focus. If we can get that and get a grip on that, Pastor Daphnis, Jamal, Mayor, we'll be good, and that's it for me today. And thank you all. I'm about to get emotional. Thank you so much. Peace and blessings, and let's walk in peace, love, and harmony. I invite you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for all that you do, and your words mean so much. And I want to thank all of our guests today for joining us. And I want to wish all the fathers a happy, safe, and healthy Father's Day. We are making great strides in reducing violence, particularly gun violence, but one life lost is still one too many. And I encourage you to come to our Safe Streets community meetings once we're allowed to meet in person again. I prefer to go to those and meet face-to-face. We meet here every month in Brockton. Follow us on Twitter for the Safe Streets announcements at Plymouth County DAO. Thank you all to everyone. Please be safe. And thank you all for participating today. Have a great rest of the day. Have a great virtual Peace March. Thank you.